I'm going to begin with a subject related to extinction, and that is what is going to be the last religion on earth? In other words, when extinction meets us, when we all get to meet our maker, will all of us lose our faith? Will we all become atheists at the last moment? Or will we have more faith, more belief, hope? you know, which is going to be the case. Okay? And the reason I bring the subject up is because there was a miracle this week. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about that miracle that was sent to the Vatican. Anyways, let's get started here. Here you see some of the symbols, typical symbols for different religions. And if you're one of those religions, you'll probably recognize the symbol or what the symbol represents, what religion it represents, right? Um, Different people have different religions and they have these icons that represent them. Okay, and here are the religions by numbers, okay? This is out of the Wikipedia, and you can see that Christianity is #1 religion in the world in general terms, right? There are many parts to it. For that matter, that's the case for all other religions as well. And it's 2.4 billion in one part of the Wikipedia. Another site says 2.6. So thereabouts 2.5 billion people are Christians. But then you have that broken up between Catholicism and Protestantism, right? And some other minor religions like Anglicanism and so on. Lots of those in Africa, by the way. And then you have Islam, and about 2 billion. You have Hinduism, 1.2, about half of Islam, and about half of that is for Buddhism, only half a billion. Okay, and you have other minor religions down at the bottom, including Judaism, which is, you could say, is part of Christianity in a way, right? Because that's what essentially the Christians believe, right? Okay, and what religion am I? Well, I'll put that up front. I'm not of any of those traditional religions, and I'm not, no longer, I used to be an atheist. I'm no longer an atheist either. Right now, I'm a religion known as scientist. Okay, scientists, physicists specifically, and scientists differ from all these other religions, atheism, theism of all kinds, and agnosticism and so on, in that we do not believe in belief. Okay, so we remove the word belief, and that's something none of these other religions can remove from their notions of religion and so on. Yeah, religion is belief and opinion. That's what it is. Okay. Okay, so here we have one site that says, "What's the future of religion?" And it says, "A growing number of people worldwide claim that they believe life to end at death with no God, heaven, or divine plan." Okay? And there's absolutely more atheists around today than ever before. And finally, it says, "The number of people that declare themselves religious fell from 77 to 68, 9% decrease between 2005 and 2011. Self-identified atheists rose by 3%. So I guess a lot of people are losing faith, at least in the traditional religions. And the question is, where does that lead to? Is that on the way of displacing all religions, all traditional religions, and people finally end up not believing in God, or becoming atheists or agnostics or whatever? And that doesn't seem to be the case. Okay, here, let me show you. Same site says that even though that's the case, that atheists are gaining overall on the planet, that's not the case. They're still losing in as a proportion of the global population. They say that this Pentecostalism is growing, and it's because there are a lot of people out there who want to go back to the old days, and they miss traditionalism, right? And a lot of these people also, they want these special things that they had in the old days, like speaking in tongues, which is the subject matter of today, really, because that's what mathematicians do when they talk about, explanations or physical interpretations of physics. They speak in tongues. That's what it is. Faith healing, and that kind of thing. And they say that when experience usually inspires complete and unwavering religious conversion. Yeah, in other words, when people really believe, it's when they had an experience and they say, oh, I don't know what's out there, and just in case I'm going to believe, or they do believe in something unseen, untouched, you know, kind of like a rope. But the rope, we don't believe in the rope. We call it an assumption. So for those of you who are ready to criticize it, think again, the rope is an assumption. It's not a belief, okay? Return to Christianity in its simplest forms. A lot of people, again, want to go back to the old days. Maybe they even want to hang or, you know, lynch people who do not believe like they do. That used to happen in the past as well. Okay? So I don't know if they want to go that far. Okay? Anyways, what is the future of religion? According to this site again, okay, and it says by the year 2050, the following is set to occur if current trends continue. Very big if there, okay? The global population of Muslim believers will almost equal the number of Christians worldwide. In other words, Muslims, they're growing at a faster rate than Christians. Atheists, agnostics, and those who have no affiliation with any religion will comprise a declining proportion of the global population, even though such bodies are increasing in numbers in countries such as the US and France. So you have all these countries like in the Western world where atheists are becoming more and more, but compared to the global population, they're going to become a smaller percentage. So that's an irony. It's only the advanced nations. Now, the only thing I would say against that is that, as time goes by, you have people who have access to the internet, and they may change their opinions faster than they can be drawn into one of the traditional religions. The other thing that I want to mention, I don't think we'll make it to the year 2050. Okay, so that's another issue. So I don't think we have to worry too much about these trends, at least for 30 years. Maybe 10, 15 at most. I don't know. I can't tell you for sure, but I don't give it too much time. Humans, and the planet. The global population of Buddhists will reach approximately the same number as in 2010, whilst Hindu and Jewish populations will increase in size compared to today. Muslims will comprise 10% of the overall European population. And I do believe that one because like here in Frankfurt, I would say that 1/3, in fact, I think there's a number for that. About 1/3 of the population is of Turkish descent or Arab descent in general. And so, I would think that, yeah, the Muslims will be taking over and muscling the Christians aside, especially, the traditional German religions, like Lutheranism and so on. India will retain Hindu majority, but will also boast the largest population of Muslims of any other country, overtaking Indonesia, simply because of the big population that India has, right? Christians will decline from more than 3/4 of the population in the U.S. to 2/3. Judaism no longer retaining its title as the largest non-Christian religion. Muslims will be more numerous in the U.S. than Jewish people. 4 of every 10 Christians worldwide will be based in sub-Saharan Africa. How's that for a trend? Okay, or a set of trends. And again, I'm not sure we're going to reach the year 2050, so we may not have to worry about these 30-year long-term trends. It may not happen. And I can't say for sure. Okay, I'm not going to say that I know for a fact. I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just saying I don't have a feel for us living another 30 years. Me for sure, I won't live another 30 years, but the question is whether humanity will live another 30 years. Okay, and some of the things that are going on in the world today, I think will accelerate, the time we meet our maker, okay, humans, Okay, so here's what the article said. It was from Hartford Courant, Hartford, Connecticut. Says, possible miracle at Connecticut church being investigated by the Vatican. Yeah, and then I'm not sure it's a miracle in the sense that, you have quantum mechanics, and it says that particles can appear from the void, from nothing. And obviously the universe appeared from nothing as well. They don't say it that way, but they insinuate it. Some do, like, you have Larry, what's his name? I can't remember his last name now. And he believes that something came from nothing. And there are a lot of so-called physicists, mathematical physicists, who believe the same thing. And this is more or less what happened in this church. It says the results of an investigation into the reports of a possible miracle at such and such church have been sent to the Vatican. What did they find? Well, on March 5, the Reverend so-and-so, pastor of such and such church there, which includes St. Thomas, reported that during Holy Communion, a lay person distributing hosts had found that the wafers had multiplied in the ciborium. Okay. Now, what's a host? Let's clarify that. Looks like this. It's a little wafer that they put in your mouth. It's a wafer of unleavened bread made with wheat flour, usually circular in shape. And the term ostia, which is a synonym of host, derives from the Latin hostia, meaning sacrificial victim, a sacrifice made to a deity. Okay, so that's what happened there. The host, the ostias, multiplied. And God duplicated himself in the ciborium, said so-and-so, right? God provides, and it's strange how God does that, and that happened. Okay, and so they say that this miracle happened, and they sent the miracle or the report to the Vatican so that I guess the Pope, my RG friend, Pope Frankie, that he could bless it or, call it a miracle. And this is the specific thing that happened inside the church, okay? It says, let me remove this. Give me a second here. It says the following, says, and as time went on, the hosts were being distributed. Fellow was giving the host to people, to the congregation, right? And then all of a sudden, the individual looked down, and all of a sudden there's more hosts in the ciboria, and kept giving the hosts out. There's even more hosts in the ciboria. Kept giving hosts out, and there's even more hosts in the ciboria. So by the time everyone received communion, and I came back up to the altar, there was the same amount, if not more, hosts that I gave the individual in the ciboria. So there were more like the Christ, giving fish to the people, to the crowds. This is more or less the same thing. He gave out the hosts, the ostias, and what happened was that he kept getting more and more hosts in his little thing there in Ciboria. And Crowley said also during the homily, neither he nor the Eucharistic minister had been praying for such a miracle. But he said it was something to think about. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe it was the devil who was doing all this. I mean, how do we know it was God or the devil? I mean, maybe it was the devil for some reason that I cannot imagine. I mean, I don't know why God would do it. I don't know why the devil wouldn't do it. And they say, well, it's because they wanted people to have more faith. And so they made that magic trick where more of these hosts come, into being, again, from empty space, I guess, like in quantum mechanics, right? So you have more of them. And so people say, oh, now I believe because we had 10 hostias, we had 100 people, we were able to give hostias to every person in there, right? All these hosts. And it turns out that the fellow has some left over. And he only had 10 to begin with. So yeah, that is a miracle. No doubt about it. If it's true, right? Maybe the guy was drunk. Maybe he didn't count properly. Okay, I don't know. Okay, so here's the issue. The issue is, what St. Augustine said, that God could be outside the universe, right? And he's doing all these miracles from outside. He even made the miracle of creating the earth and the universe itself. And I got a problem with this under the rope model. Okay, we cannot tolerate God being outside the universe for a couple reasons. And let's go over some of these. Okay, here's one. Okay. Here you have God outside the universe. The universe is just a single closed loop thread, according to the rope model. That's the assumption. Okay. And so we have a problem because God is not in touch. He's not part of that thread. And if God is not part of that thread, he has no way of contacting us. Okay. The only way he can contact us is if he's somehow in contact with the thread. And as you can see, he's isolated completely in this image here, and that's essentially what St. Augustine was saying. In other words, according to St. Augustine, God is not part of the universal thread, the single thread, okay? And we're saying that thread is what makes up all of matter, all the atoms, and all the interconnections that have this DNA-like form. We call it a rope that connects any two atoms in the universe. Okay, so if God wants to be part of the universe, if God wants to exist, God has to be part of the thread. Okay, if God is not part of the thread, he has no way to contact us, let alone us contacting him. Okay, that means we're not in communication with God, and God is not in communication with us. Okay? And then the other thing that God would have to explain is how he created this thread, how he created the universe, right? Everything, including the earth. Um, did he create it from nothing? I mean, what was there before the thread? Was there absolutely all that blackness, all that nothingness? Is that what was there before then? And so the person who proposes that God created the universe has to answer that question. Otherwise, he has no case in science and physics. Okay, and you might say, well, I don't know. God knows only how he did it. So here's the question for you. Here's God, right? He comes down to earth. Okay, we're going to assume that he's part of the thread now. Okay, he comes down to earth and he explains to you how he created something from nothing. Okay, do you think you would understand his manufacturing process? Do you think if he explained, if God himself sat down there at the park bench and said, look, let me tell you how I created something from nothing, do you think we would understand whatever he explains? Okay, and I suggest that we would. We have the intelligence to understand anything that anyone in this universe wishes to explain to us. I mean, you can have the Klingons come over and they can explain something in their part of the world, part of the universe, and they say, look, this is how we do things over there. This is some technology that we have there. Okay, can you explain it to us? Yeah, and the guy would say, look, this is what it looks like, and this is how it works, and this is how we made it. He would be able to explain all those things to you. Why wouldn't you understand it? What is it that you wouldn't understand? Okay, and again, the issue here is with God is the same thing. If God comes down from heaven or from wherever he is, the fifth dimension, and he sits down and he talks to you personally, one-on-one, and he explains how he created something from nothing, why wouldn't you understand him? That's the million-dollar question for you. Okay. Anyways, regarding what's going on in the universe, on Earth, among humans. Okay, here we have one headline says EU, the European Union, U.S. to pledge joint action over China concerns. It says that all these folks, politicians, etc., they got together here in Brussels and will pledge joint action to tackle concerns focused on China. Got them very nervous. China's on the news every second about non-market practices and coordinate their export controls on semiconductors and other goods at a meeting this month, a draft statement showed. Okay, so these folks want to block China in different ways, and China promises to take countermeasures. Okay, so I don't know if that's good for the world. The fact that we're dividing the world economics in two parts, okay? Assuming that's what's happening. Sometimes, the politicians do mislead you for whatever reasons they have. But if it's real, if they end up doing it and they say, we're not going to give you this because we're afraid you're going to use it for military purposes, and then the Chinese come back and say, then we're not going to buy this other stuff from you or whatever, or we're going to put tariffs or whatever countermeasures they take, then it's going to be a pretty bad world. These things are not good. It'd be nice if we all cooperate, but here we're talking about absolute competition, which is what Mother Nature likes. Mother Nature doesn't like lions reaching an agreement and saying, look, you take that harem, I'll take this one. No, you got to fight for it. There's got to be competition. Mother Nature loves that stuff. She loves killing. She loves fighting, murder, cannibalism. She likes all that stuff. Okay, so we have to fight. Okay? But fighting does not conduce, in this sense, to a monopoly. It usually conduces to extinction. And not necessarily because we throw the bombs at each other, but we destroy the global economy. Once you destroy the global economy, there is no future. Okay, can't restart it back up again. Okay, and here, so there's one fellow at least, economist who, Nobel Prize, by the way, who warns against this. He says, hostile U.S. policies on China risk splitting the world into two blocks, urging the West to offer investment, not lectures, to developing countries. We may be in some kind of strategic competition, but that doesn't mean that we have to be quite so hostile. Okay? Washington is attempting to limit Chinese influence on critical supply chains. And this cannot be explained simply by concerns over Beijing's political system. We have many, quote, friends, right, who are authoritarian, but what we don't like is the economic competition and political competition. In other words, you've got countries like Saudi Arabia. They've got an authoritarian system. The United States is not completely dead set against them. In fact, they were quite friends until maybe a couple years ago, right? But until then, they were very good friends, and it was an authoritarian system, which continues to be, an authoritarian system. So it's not, but the United States has very little to fear from smaller countries like Saudi Arabia. China, that's a different story. So it says the West is investing very little in developing economics, and compared to countries like China. In other words, China is now getting into these developing countries, giving them money, loans, etc., and the West is not doing its share of that process. And so China is gaining influence by introducing its money, right? Essentially bribing money, buying them off or whatever. We give them lectures about what to do, and they, the Chinese, give them money. Yeah, that's the difference. The U.S. is not present in Latin America and Africa, and the Chinese are getting in there, right? While we say we're competing, we're not doing the investment. Politics in America has gotten into a very strange place. And I think the issue there is that the United States doesn't have that much disposable money to be able to loan it around. It's got problems of its own. China's growing twice as fast as the United States. And so at some point, if that's projected forward, they're going to catch up. And so that's what the United States and the Western world, Europe included, fear. Okay? And so this is where we're at. And then you have the war in Ukraine, which is not good for humanity either. And all I can tell you there is we don't know what's going on there, because the military on one side and the military on the other side, they just give you lies because they have to have cheerleaders for their side. And so you don't really know what's going on. And this week they said, well, look, we've made some gains in this little town called Bakhmut. And the problem there is, it could be twofold. Maybe it's real, right? Maybe they made some gains, the Ukrainians. Maybe it's what happened to, Napoleon and Hitler, and, where you had von Papen, he went with his army over there, and they kind of, allowed him to come in. Same with Napoleon. And then they had this pincer movement where they slaughtered them. And so sometimes these are war tactics. And so they say, oh, we're losing, we're losing. It turns out they're not losing. They're running away, hoping, for the other side to be encircled. And so, and both sides know this. Okay, so some are very cautious and saying, we're not going to fall into that trap. And the other guys are saying, are kind of saying, welcoming them in, saying, yeah, we're losing. You're beating us. And maybe that's not true either. So we don't really know what's going on over there. That's the reality, because whatever you get from either side is just a bunch of lies. Okay, they're just cheerleading their own teams. That's all they're doing.